Greetings, hello world. This is your host, Elwin Green, and welcome to Mic Drops, monologues, interviews, and conversations with your host and whoever I can drag into the conversation to be with me. And on this episode, I'm really excited and grateful to have as my guest Ms. Maryn Formley, who is the executive director, am I getting that right, of VEEM. And I'm sorry, ma'am, I never get it right. There's too many E's. VEEM, which is
Yes.
voter, okay, I know
Empowerment,
education.
education, and enrichment movement.
Okay, all right. Um, and so VEEM has been around a few years now, and I was trying to remember actually when and how we first met. I'm thinking that it was at an event that you had across the street from me in the basement of Baptist Temple. Does
Yep,
that sound right?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
pretty sure.
And this was just a typical kind of VEEM event, which was a nonpartisan, I want to emphasize that, a nonpartisan forum for voters to meet with candidates and hear from different candidates. I would like to begin simply by having you, ma'am, give us the background on VEEM. How did it get started?
Sure. So it's really interesting, Mr. Owen. My journey to being a founder of a nonprofit. I never thought that this would be where I ended up. I work for the county. In my regular life, I've been there for almost 20 years. I just kind of saw myself doing that path, and that was it. Some people I feel like kind of feel called and appointed to do community work from early on or
Mhm.
somewhere in their young adulthood, and they're just they seek to do it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me at all. It wasn't me. And so, but what happened is that 2017, it was the primary, the mayoral primary, which was big in Pittsburgh. My former pastor, Reverend Dr. John C. Welch, was challenging the incumbent Bill Peduto for the term of mayor in Pittsburgh. And, he had gotten up in front of the congregation and said, I need your help. Um, this is what God told me to do, and I need to do it. And, if anybody can help me, let me know. At the time, I'm actually in grad school at Duquesne University, working on my master's in leadership. Just again working and doing life. And I remember that it was almost the end of the spring semester in grad school. I was going to school full time, or going to school part time and working full time. And Rev needed volunteers, and I'm like, yeah, Rev, I got you. As soon as finals, as soon as I'm done with my last paper, I got you. I'm gonna come out. So it is the weekend before the primary election, and I finally have a chance to go volunteer. So we are out in the South Hills. I think it's like Carrick or something like that, which is now my neighborhood, which is really hilarious because I've never been on this side of town before, and I'm over on this side of the bridges. But yeah, we're walking around Carrick or something, and we're trying to energize people and find out, hey, there's an election on Tuesday. Are you registered to vote? Are you voting? Are you registered? Are you going to participate? And the things that we're hearing, and I'll never forget, there was a couple, and the woman says, yes, I'm registered and I'm going to vote. And then the man says, oh, I'm not old enough yet. And I said, and we're looking at him like, you look like an adult. And he said, yeah, I'm not 21. And we're like, you only got to be 18. And he didn't know, right? So that was like thing number one. So then we started talking about what the plan would be for election day. Reverend John, and I've told this story 50 million times, so he won't mind. Reverend John, had a very small team to where we looked at the criticality of which polls do we need to be at that are going to have the most bang for our buck of no books, because we had no books.
Right.
And so I get assigned to Homewood. And that's when I first become acquainted with Ward 13, and me being, kind of an analytical sort. I have this spreadsheet that tells me that, that these are the 19 precincts of Ward 13, and here's the addresses. And so I break them up and decide, well, I'm going to spend 45 minutes at each poll, that day. And so so I started out my day, the fire station on Hamilton. I'm over at Baptist Temple, which is a precinct. I'm down at Carnegie Library. I'm all of these different places. I end up in East Hills at Imani School. All these different, and I'm outside and I'm just talking to potential voters. And all day I'm being challenged with the most interesting of topics. One thing that I noticed is that a lot of our people that look like us, we are involved in Election Day. We are very heavily involved in Election Day, but we are likely to be working the polls or handing out information for candidates and stuff like that. The voting part wasn't necessarily the main thing. It's I'm working at such and such a poll because poll work is paid. And a lot of, we're underpaid, right? We're looking for opportunities to get, so we're going to have a day, we're going to enjoy ourselves, all of that. And so that day, as I'm going around, I'm over at Homewood House. That's another good precinct. And one guy says, yeah, and I've got on my Vote for John Welch T-shirt, and I got my papers, I'm handing them out or whatever. And so somebody says, oh yeah, I want to, I like what he has to say, because at the time, Reverend John was the one who pulled out the issues about the water and about, the lead in our lines that they're finally getting to, right, as they're replacing all these lines. But nobody was talking about that water quality back then, and that was something that he really did bring to the forefront. And so somebody said, yeah, I like what he has to say. And he's like, but I'm assigned to this poll all day. I'm giving out information for such and such, whoever such and such might have been, because I don't remember anymore. And I can't leave, or else I won't get paid. And he's like, and this is at my polling place. And I'm like, so you didn't make arrangements to vote? And he's like, nope.
Okay.
And I was like, oh.
Time out.
Yep.
You came across poll workers who did not vote or weren't.
Right. It happens a lot, because you are stuck you're at the mercy, whether you are handing things out as a volunteer or a paid person for a campaign, or you're being paid by the county to be a poll worker. You are supposed to get a break to be able to go vote, because you could be assigned anywhere.
Okay.
But and this is going back to my county side, because now county workers, it's always been county workers, but now county workers are more, at least in my department, like we're more likely to be drafted to work, because the workers who have to produce the election have to be county. And so the ones that are kind of at the, we have to be hired by the county or whatever. So we have to help be rovers and such like that. So I've learned a lot on this opposite side of things, getting ahead of my story. But I've given rides to poll workers as I've come around to go check on them, and they said, I didn't vote. Would you mind taking me? And I'm like, yeah, come on, get in this car and come on and vote. I'll drop you off down the street at such and such precinct that's yours, because you're not assigned to your precinct.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was a thing. That was a common theme that day. There was a common theme of just people who didn't know any better. I had a conversation with somebody from the parties, a party ward chair, who was like, oh, well, I like him. I like Reverend Welch and all, but just throwing this out here, and won't say any names to protect the innocent. But I like him, but he didn't come to us. And I said, what do you mean? He didn't come to our party's committee to talk to us about why we should vote for him. and or he didn't come for endorsement. And I said, oh. And I said, did you know that your endorsement costs X amount of dollars? Because that was something that we were told. And I'm like, we're a small campaign. We didn't have that. And they're like, oh, well, I mean, they still could have come to us. And I'm like, he couldn't have come to you. Like, it was like a pushback. Then it was like, well, you know what? Maybe he could be the black mayor to the white mayor. And I said, excuse me? And they said, yeah, that we can have our own election and in the room and decide that he can be our black mayor and he'll be the one to go take all of our issues to Peduto. And I was like, and I'm looking like,
okay,
it's a joke.
How would that
What's
work?
happening right now? And then they said, well, we would still have to have an election though. Oh, so okay, well, that's my time at this poll. Let me get on out of here. So that's the type of stuff I was dealing with all day. So then finally, about 5 o'clock, Homewood done dried up. It's a primary. It's not the presidential. Like, it's dried up.
Right.
So the campaign manager's riding around, checking on, everybody. And she said, you know what? Why don't you go over there to Squirrel Hill? It's still popping at the JCC at the Jewish Community Center. I said, okay. So I go over there, and, there's also a lot of judges on the ballot. And the people that are there also have all kinds of questions. But what's the difference between a magistrate and a Commonwealth Court judge? And what's the difference between Commonwealth Court and Superior Court judge? And so I was just left with a feeling, and, obviously he didn't win, and turnout was pretty bad. But even still, I was left with an unsettled feeling about people really don't get the importance of this. People are not, they're not plugged into this. They don't recognize that change can happen, right? And, this was also, we had been in the Obama years, and then, but it's 2017. So we didn't had a year of an administration change, and a lot of hopelessness is going on. And I'm like, but there is hope. You can elect, people if you want to, if that's what you want to do. And so I leave election night like, somebody used to do this, right? Didn't there used to be organizations and I start fact finding, and I'm like, who does this? This don't make sense for this turnout to be so low. This don't make sense. What is going on, right? So, as I'm asking around, and then, I'm hearing this like still small voice type of stuff, like, okay, this for you to do. And I'm like, no, listen here, and I am, a woman of faith, and, believe in the Lord and all of that stuff. And so I'm like, no, that ain't, that's funny. Nope. And we actually, at my church at Bidwell in the north side, we just happened to be also having a revival like later that week. So election night was Tuesday, and then, revival was Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I think it was Dr. Alan Waller from Enon who was our revivalist, I think, because it's been a while now. Every single night of this revival, I'm getting confirmation that yes, this is what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, God, I don't know what you're talking about. This is crazy. It can't be me.
Wrong number.
Yeah, I work at the county, like, I'm good. But I do start sketching ideas out. I'm like, no, that's not me. So finally, after Friday, I hear the word again. I said, all right, okay, so just so I know it's not my imagination, or it's not the hype of the revival, because, revivals are real hype, right? I was like, tell me Sunday morning. Tell me Sunday morning, and then I promise I'll say yes. If you tell me on Sunday morning, I know it's really you and not just me being all hype.
Okay.
Sunday morning, sure enough, heard the same thread of message. I was like, all right. So I went to go talk to my pastor, Pastor Denise Welch, and say, hey, God said I had to start an organization, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And that's literally how VEEM started.
Okay.
From God Said So. And what ended up happening, the quick story, that was 7 years ago, so we're about to celebrate our 7th year. And And, you know, she told me who I needed to talk to, what I needed to do, who needed to be on my team. And as she was telling me what to do, the different pieces of the pie were all falling together. These people were already in my circle, my initial board members, my founding. A lot of them were already good friends and, folks that I had known for years. And so, and they had the pieces of the vision, because I'm like, I'm not someone who's really that much civically educated. I don't know how this really works. At that time, I had no idea. Now I'm a voting rights expert.
Okay.
I've learned to be the expert along the way. I mean, I knew how to go vote. I knew how to register and go vote. That's what I would do. I knew how to Google people's names and see, but that was it. I've learned so much with this organization and with the amazing people who are on my board and who have been on my board over the years and have, might not be on the board anymore. They have really energized and educated me. And so now I educate others. And it turned out that this work has ended up being my entire passion. And I didn't know, I had no idea this was out here, that this was waiting to happen. But I'm still at the county, and, and now, I'm the ED of this organization that's 7 years old almost.
All right. Well, that is a fascinating story. And I'm grateful that all of that happened, because you have been doing the work along with your team. Does VEEM have any actual employees, or all of your folks volunteers?
That's a great question. So over the years, what has happened is that, and I know you have on the slate to talk about the data, but basically what happened is that as we started to decide what our focus was going to be and what were going to be the things that we worked on, we really landed on trying to do what we could to educate potential voters, because we believe that, and this is, the type of session that you met us at, is if we can tell you what's happening and what's going on and why this matters, then we can make you a super voter, right? And so, but what we did, though, we came from a data perspective about, like, this is what turnout is. A lot of people focus on voter registration. A lot of organizations focus on voter registration. But for us, when we dug into the numbers and we see that, on average, only 20%, like if we already have 1 million registered voters and only 20% of those voters are actually showing up, you could overturn elections with an additional 20% of people that are already registered to vote. Now, yes, voter registration matters for the folks who are not registered, but who's going after the 80%? VEEM really exists for that 80% on average that aren't showing up. That's what we're here for. We will register voters. We do believe in that, and we'll help with all those type of things. But really, we're trying to get to that 80% that have registered to vote and that they don't come out for whatever the reasons might be. So if the barriers are transportation, which actually usually isn't true because we have so many precincts here in Allegheny County. If the barrier is, you got to work 3 jobs and, you're on a bus line and you can't get back to your, teaching you about mail-in voting, right? If the barriers are, I have no idea who to vote for. I don't know who these people are. I don't know what their job is, so we come from that perspective with VEEM. And so, as when you met us, we were there in the Baptist Temple basement, and we were having a good old time with, folks like you and people who went to Baptist Temple, especially shout out to the choir who would be upstairs rehearsing and then come on downstairs for VEEM. I loved it. Mm-hmm. But what we recognized, though, is that was a certain demographic of people who were already voters. We weren't getting to the people who are not voters because they're not going to show up for something like that. Food, having dinner is not a motivation enough. So we realized that we needed to start building relationships. And that's when we got into integrated voter engagement, which is a program that exists and has a national model. And so we're a part of State Voices, specifically Pennsylvania Voice. And when we got connected with them for voter data, so we could find out who was registered, who wasn't registered, who's voting, who's not voting, and how can we talk to these people and target these people where we launched, which is Ward 13. It's just where I was that day, and so that's where we launched, so Homewood and East Hills. And, they started getting us connected to resources. and also said that, but we need you to knock this amount of doors, which is called turf coordination. Because, we're not going to have the same 4 organizations all knocking the same doors. We're going to split it up, right? And so in that, when we said, oh, we went home with the East Hills, well, who's going to knock all these doors? And for VEEM, we were all either working full-time or retired full-time, which means we don't have the time to go knock all these doors. And so that is when we started to bring on staff. So to your point about, we do not have employees because we don't have benefits. And so you cannot legally have an employee without benefits. But we do have contracted staff that are part-time during the summer and full-time during the election seasons. And we have 2 that work for us, year-round. Our community organizer and our lead canvasser, who are amazing. And then when it's actually like the 2 weeks of us doing the coordinated voter engagement efforts, we hire seasonal staff that we pay them to help us knock the doors, make the phone calls, text the people, all those things of people showing up at your house, different people, right, trying to engage you, they're texting you, it's coming up as spam. Yeah, we're a part of that, unfortunately.
Hey.
I send the text myself, and so it says, oh, it's Maryn from VEEM. Hi. That's coming through as an auto text.
You got to do what you got to do.
Listen.
I'm trying to figure out, so for viewers, this episode is being recorded on July 24th, and not all of our episodes are going to be as time specific as this one. I'm giving this date because it has now been there, let's see, what is it? About 10 days since the shooting at the Trump rally, and 3 days since Joe Biden announced that he would not be running. So the entire political landscape is shifting under our feet, and it feels like it's almost happening on a daily basis. And again, a reminder to everyone, VEEM is a nonpartisan organization. So I'm not going to ask her to try to say anything for or against any particular candidate, anything like this. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge, right, that things have changed dramatically in just the past week and a half. And I guess the first question that I want to ask about the contours of this new landscape, right? Is, do you believe that, I'll back up a step first, because prior to this weekend, a lot of people were expressing discontent with a rematch of 2016. Right? Like, how did this even happen? Right? And frankly, some folks were even saying things like, I don't want to vote for either of them. Right? And America kind of has in general, America does not do well with voter turnout in comparison with any other modern democracy. Okay?
Yep.
Okay? We can give y'all numbers later if you need them. Okay?
That's right.
But so there's kind of like a real possibility of the turnout this time around being lower than it should be because so many people don't like the choice being presented.
That's right.
So all of that is to lead up to the question. Do you believe that Biden's withdrawal and the pending nomination of Kamala Harris might make a difference in voter turnout?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So I will tell you that prior to, these last couple of weeks, and I would even venture to say it's not just the Biden step down and the Kamala, running and endorsement. I would say even the event that happened the weekend before with the assassination attempt of former President Trump, that also had the tide turning. So we've really been in a tide turning for 2 straight weeks. Mm-hmm. Prior, though, to both of those events, I'd said to you, like, that's when you have me quoted in the newspaper talking about, like, yeah, I don't know if people are going to come out at all, but also because I could see it as an executive director, in 2020, this time of year, we were getting random donations from foundations and IRA funds and protected, I'm like, where did they find us? They were just Googling who's working to increase voter turnout in Pittsburgh, because Pennsylvania is a swing state. And they were just, we were getting invitations to apply for grant. It was crazy in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Money was coming everywhere, okay? And so I could kind of tell. So what happens is that, and you learn this, in this space, is that every 4 years, the election repeats. The same offices get elected every 4 years. A little bit different with that, 6-year terms and things of that nature, but there's not too many of those. But for the most part, right? So not just the president, but also it's Congress and it's Senate and it's, that's always happening, right? And so we noticed, whoa, people aren't talking about this. People aren't asking us to talk about this. People aren't inviting us to talk about this. We're calling and saying, hey, can we come talk about this? And people are like, everybody was feeling away, and you could just kind of feel it. So our strategy at VEEM was okay, we know that people do not want to vote and don't really want to deal with this presidential race. It is ugly, it's gross, it's icky, nobody really wants to be involved in this. So we're going to focus on Senate, we're going to focus on, we're going to focus on Congress, we are going to focus on the state houses, we're going to focus on the things that we know can impact our community and remind people, okay, so we even got to the point of listen, if you want to skip the president box on your ballot, we're okay. We understand. That's fine. But please get to the down ballot. That's just kind of where we had gotten to, because everybody was feeling hopeless, right? On both sides, I think. Both sides, all sides. What is this? What is this climate that we're in? And so for that to change around literally 2 weeks later, with one thing happening for one party that was major, and then something else happening for the other major party that was major, it's oh, now we got a game. It's like the Super Bowl, right? The Super Bowl, and 2 teams are playing each other and nobody's scoring, and you're like, I'm just watching for these commercials. I want to see the halftime show. And then all of a sudden, somebody scores and the other side scores. Oh, now we got a game. That's how I feel. Now we got a game. This is gonna be fun to watch now. So now the energy is changing. Now, we've already started getting phone calls. Hey, I want to volunteer for VEEM. What can I do?
Wow.
Yeah. I'm
that is great.
So I'm about to get my little fundraising graphics together, because hey, just come on and send, we're trying to make sure we can sustain, right? So while we're waiting on more funding to come in, so we can pay more staff, so that we can do, we can serve the community. But it's just really crazy to watch, Mr. Elwin. Like I said, I have whiplash. Like, whoa, this has changed, and I'm like, whoo. I'm already tired of thinking about it, but it's a good kind of tired. And that's how I think too, and I can go on and on about how when you're in your purpose, and the way that you know it is that when you are working in that purpose and you leave something, a meeting or whatever, and you might walk into it tired, but you walk out feeling energized and all excited, that's how you know. And so that's how I knew. I was like, oh, this is my passion. This is my purpose. Wow, okay. And so that's kind of how we're feeling like, man, we're in our purpose. We're about to get this done. And for VEEM, again, we're nonpartisan. There's a lot of exciting things happening with who's in the race now for president. But there's also the rest of the contests have been exciting. Congressional majorities at the state and the federal level are super important, and they're usually super close. So these type of contests, they aren't going away. And regardless of who actually gets voted in, whoever's in the Congress is going to be the ones who are really being the legislative branch and making the laws that impact ours. So it basically gave it a popularity boost.
Yeah. All right.
It's going to be popular now. So we're going to see more turnout because it's popular to be involved.
So what I would like to do right now, before I forget, is give you the opportunity to share with folks the contact info in case they would like to get involved or send a donation. So
I love it. Yes, thank you for that. So you can, so I will say that we are, VEEM is a small but mighty team. I have, some amazing board members that have hung in here, and, with the ride of being around for 7 years, we have our amazing staff people. And then we have me, the part-time executive director who's still working full-time for the county. And, so we could use the help in doing stuff. Any kind of volunteer, to be honest, it isn't necessarily about knocking doors or encouraging people to vote. Maybe you are, I don't know, an accountant, and you would like to volunteer your accounting services. Maybe you're a graphic designer. Maybe you're what else do I typically need? Maybe you have slots in advertising. There's all kinds of ways to help with VEEM. And then, of course, money's great, too. And so you can follow VEEM on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, also known as Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. Though I can't say we have a lot of content on TikTok or Twitter right now, sorry. But Facebook and Instagram, we're pretty popping. So you can follow us at VEEM Pittsburgh, V as in Victor, 3 E's, M as in Milk, Pittsburgh, all spelled out, on all of those platforms, and you will find us. You can also visit our website, www.veempittsburgh.org. You can call the VEEM line or text the VEEM line, 412-465-0551. If you'd like to donate toward our cause, you should probably call us first and talk about the best way to do that, because we're not trying to get spammed or anything like that. So let's have a conversation. But, you can also look us up on GuideStar, because we are a 501c3, tax exempt. So all donations are tax deductible. So I will actually go ahead and give that contact as well. We can be emailed at veempittsburgh@gmail.com. Our P.O. Box is P.O. Box 23351, Pittsburgh, PA 15222.
Well, okay, then you about got it covered. Like you even got the USPS, United States Postal Service, put a stamp on it.
Yep.